Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 14, season 2 of Word Made Digital. I'm your host, Joanna LaFleur. Today on the episode, we have my friend Jenny Randle. She's a speaker, she's an author, and she is a creative ninja. She actually runs a digital marketing agency. It's called Yellow Chair Creatives. And earlier in 2018, she also started a ministry called Freedom Creatives. And so out of Freedom Creatives and out of her work in trying to equip procrastinating dreamers and creatives to live what she calls a creative ninja life, she wrote this book, and it's called Courageous Creative. And I love this book because it's actually like not just a book to read, but it's actually a book to work through. So as creatives, you can actually get your hands into it and draw and create and consider these different exercises that she has throughout the entire book. I think you're going to love it if you want to check out the book. But hey, the most important thing you need to know, I think, up front about Jenny Randle is that in 2009, she won an Emmy Award. That's right, an Emmy Award. It was for her work on a project as a film editor. And so it's just a cool and interesting creative ninja life that she leads, and I can't wait to talk to her on today's episode. And hey, thanks again to our sponsor, Wycliffe College. They've been sponsoring all of season 2, and I'm really just so grateful. If you don't know Wycliffe, they are an evangelical graduate school of theology. They're located at the University of Toronto. They offer certificate, master's, and doctoral programs, and you get a conjoint degree. That basically means you get a degree from Wycliffe and University of Toronto, which is one of the top universities in the entire world. So you get an amazing piece of paper at the other end of studying at Wycliffe. It's super affordable too, because it's part of the University of Toronto and they receive government funding and support. It's really affordable compared to a lot of private colleges you could go to for seminary. And it's flexible too, in class, online, full-time, part-time, whatever works. I did both. As a student, I was there full-time for a year and I went part-time for another year. I did some courses online. I did some in person. I did some intensives, like 1 week courses where you get it all done at once. I even did a study abroad thing where I went to Israel, which was really amazing, to go on the trip to a place I'd always wanted to go and get credit for going. And so anyways, it was an amazing experience for me. And if you're looking at expanding yourself academically, if you're looking at trying to learn more about the Bible or about pastoring or about church ministry, about the history of the church, theology, all that stuff, Wycliffe's a great place for you to consider. You can check it out at wycliffecollege.ca/wordmadedigital. There's an interview there they did with me where you can see more information about the school and just browse around and check it out. Would love for you to see it. All right, let's go into our conversation with Jenny Randle.
Welcome to the Word Made Digital podcast with Joanna LaFleur. You're listening to Season 2, sponsored by Wycliffe College. Word Made Digital brings you interviews with brilliant Christian creatives and communicators to inspire, challenge, and equip you in your own work. The church carries the best news in the world, so we want to help you be the best creatives and communicators in the world. Here we go.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast. I'm so glad to finally have you.
Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
We both are sitting in our offices, and we both have those letter boards sitting behind us with cheeky phrases on them. And so we're kindred spirits already. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where do you come from?
Oh, man. Okay. My name's Jenny Randle. I have 2 little kids. They're 7 and 5. And I'm married to Matt, who is a retired engineer. And now we work together in our marketing company. We have a ministry called Freedom Creatives. So we basically juggle all the things all day long. That's my life. And we're in upstate New York right now. So.
Okay. I love how you say he's retired from engineering, which makes him sound like he's 65, but
he's 65, but not at all.
65, but he's a young retiree. He's on a new career, I guess.
It's just, it's a fancy way to say he got sick of engineering and then we started a new business together, basically.
Yeah, and I want to hear all about this business you run, this creative work that you're doing. But before we go there, I want to go back a little bit. Talk to me about sort of the late teens, early 20s when you entered into the world of film, editing, all that kind of stuff, and where that ended up for you.
Yeah, man, you did your homework. I'm already super impressed with your skills here. So yeah, I actually became a Christian at 18, and it was that period in between high school and college, and I went to study TV in college. So I spent some time figuring out how to make TV, how to do that thing, and then I ended up moving out into Hollywood. And what was cool, like a couple of years ago, I was flipping through my journals from that time when I first became a Christian, and I wrote down, I feel as if the Lord is calling me to work in all aspects of media. And it's fun now. Gosh, how old am I? 20 years later, 18, 19, 20. Nope, 30. Nope, I don't know how old I am. This is getting awkward. I'm not the math major in the family. That's my husband. So it's fun a million years later, look back and be like, wow, God has used me to impact all aspects of media, and it's never how I ever imagined it to be. So after college in New York, I landed in Hollywood working. Of course, out there, you don't just jump in with your dream of, I want to be a video editor. You don't get to do that right away. So I worked as a receptionist at a post-production company.
Oh, wow. You started in reception. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my friends would prank call me. They thought it was so funny. It was so awkward. And and you have to act professional. So I'd be like, what is happening? And they just carry out these elaborate jokes. I survived. And then
you had a very supportive community, obviously.
Supportive community. But I did, though, because my first job, they said you can teach yourself professional editing software at night. So every night when I was like, you're tired after work, but every night that I was ready to go for it, I would teach myself Avid, which was the system a lot of professionals used in the entertainment industry. So I taught myself how to edit. And there was oh my gosh, you're going to laugh. There was one night I was working late and the sound guy was frantically running around the building, and he was like, I need a voiceover artist. And I got chosen. I'm like, this is my moment. Like, I'm going to have this voiceover career I never knew I wanted. I'm like, I'm going to do it. But it turns out I only got chosen because he needed a girl, and I was the only girl in the building. So awkward. So he's like, go in this room. And I go, you know what a voiceover studio is like, right? There's like the microphone, and then there's that soundproof glass. So I'm on that side of it. And there was studio execs on the other side. And this is a little old. I just graduated from college, Jenny. Like, I'm going to make it in entertainment industry. And he's like, okay, here are the lines. You have to do it in a British accent. You're going to totally be fine.
Come on.
Yeah.
He didn't bother to mention that to you, when you got recruited.
Yeah, I was so he comes over this God mic and he's like, action. And the movie, so I had to do a voiceover to match the TV spot that was supposed to go on the DVD. So it was like this high level, and the actress's voice wasn't matching. So they needed me to act like an actress in this TV spot. And this was the line, and I'm gonna, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Okay, are you ready?
Bring it on.
Okay. Would you light me a candle on my birthday? Like that. The worst.
This is your entrance into the world of Hollywood.
So good. No, I wasn't.
Oh my gosh.
So he tried to coach me through it for an hour. Like, okay, bring it down a little. Like, you're really passionate. I can feel it. Like, I just couldn't do it at all. And it was one of those creative moments where you're like, it's just not in my skill set. Like, I'm not a professional voiceover artist. So I ended up being inspired, and I was like, let's call my friend who can hit this line. So she came in, hit it in one take, and we all got to go home. But here's the cool part of the story. So, of course, that's embarrassing and awkward, but it was fine. I survived, right? Because that failure doesn't define me. And years later, as an editor, I got to coach other voiceover artists in how to deliver the lines. And like, I was behind the safety of the glass, and it was cool to see God turn that failure in a way into a victory. And I think a lot of times in our creative process, we can take risks and totally bomb, but God redeems those moments and can use it for good in other ways.
Yeah, you're literally like remembering from your own failure or awkward experience, how can I make these people feel more comfortable or more successful in what they're doing because it wasn't offered to me maybe.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from reception to voiceover to editing, obviously you said that you were practicing. How did you get the chance to actually use those skills and get paid for them?
Yeah, well, I invested a lot in serving in my church. So I got so as I was learning the software, and I already understood nonlinear editing, but, understanding the different software is key. So I got to practice through serving in our local church and just being really invested in there. And then I moved into an assistant editor role at a different post-production house. And there we were working with studios on DVD featurettes. And then I worked my way up to freelancing and having an editor, like a senior editor role, and it's fantastic. So it was really fun.
Yeah, and from what you can say, like, what are some of the projects that you were working on in that era of your life? Like, or the companies, or is there something that we would know the name of?
Yeah, I worked on, do you remember behind the scene looks at like how films are made and like, you know what those are, right? Like the little featurettes of how things are made. So
like it would be part of the DVD.
Yeah.
Like back when DVDs were things.
Yeah, like let's watch these special features. So I worked on X-Men content for X-Men. I got to work on Madagascar, Lion King, I Love You Man. That was something I got to produce and edit, which was really fun because you get all this content and they're like, okay, make something. So I got to do storytelling through that, of course, on the timeline. Wow. A lot of DreamWorks and Paramount and Fox, all the studios. It was a really fun season of just being in the entertainment industry and being surrounded by big dreamers and people that carried a lot of vision.
Wow. And did you meet your husband in that context? Like, was he part of the industry as well? Oh, okay.
Nope. Remember, former engineer, retired engineer.
Oh, yeah, of course. Engineer.
Yeah.
Different world.
Yeah. So I was in freelancing as an editor, and I felt like I should move to Orange County, which is like an hour and a half away from where I was living in Hollywood. And I helped my friends start a church. Okay. And at that church was where I met my husband.
Got it. Okay. Not in the Hollywood hills.
No.
So somewhere along the lines, you received you were part of a team that received this huge honor, a huge award. Tell us about that. What was that whole experience like?
Yeah, so I got brought in to do color correction, which is called online editing, for an educational series on PBS. I think the episode we won an Emmy for was a chemistry show. And I remember the producer ended up calling one day and she's like, guess what? We won an Emmy. Where do you want your Emmy sent to? And I was like, what is going on? So it was really exciting.
Wow.
Really fun. Yeah. And that Emmy, I have to tell you, has opened up so many doors.
Wow.
It's been amazing and really fun. Just a fun honor to receive.
So do you have an Emmy, like in your home?
It's right over, everybody, I'm pointing.
Okay. She's in her office. Here. She's pulling, oh my goodness, it's in your hand.
I would let you hold it, so we'll have to hang out in real life.
In Theater of the Minds, imagine we're all looking at it, holding it. Everyone can go Google what they look like. Wow,
and it's
amazing.
Like a real, on primetime Emmys, it's like the same. So it's pretty fun.
And you didn't even know you'd received it. It sounds like you sort of after the fact. There was not a lot of pomp and circumstance. Oh, by the way, we got this big award.
Yeah, we got this award. Where do you want it sent to? I'm like, wow, okay. I did get invited to the Emmy party, but I decided not to go because you had to pay money.
Oh yeah, fair.
Well, you know,
priorities.
And I had to not wear my sweatpants. Let's be honest. I had to snazzy up.
Yeah,
that was too much work.
Well, this is why you now work at home. I'll talk about that in a second. Before we go into that stuff, your transition out of Hollywood, can you tell us what does Jumpin' Jenny do? I found this on your website. Who is Jumpin' Jenny?
Gosh, I'm so embarrassed right now. Okay. How did you find that? I have to.
It's you. So you have offered it to the world. It's somewhere in your bio on your website, and I had to ask you who that was.
Oh, I'm getting sweaty and nervous right now. Okay, I was a DJ for a while. The beat of Syracuse, the all new Z89. This is Jumpin' Jenny. That was my DJ name.
Like on the radio.
On
Okay.
the radio.
Okay.
It was super unique. What would your DJ name be?
Well, I also had a radio. This is why we're doing podcasts now, right? I had a radio show in university or college, as you say in the U.S.
Oh, yep. Oh, I knew this. I knew you did. Okay.
Yeah, I had like a hip hop radio show, played like 90s hip hop music, and I just called myself just my name. I didn't have any creative name, but I regret this now because it would be a great party story if I had a good DJ name.
But what would it be? Make one up now. See, we're stretching your creativity.
You know what? I'd probably call myself J-La. Yeah, because I just spent a lot of my last few weeks binging on Amazon Prime J-Lo films, like Made in Manhattan and The Wedding Planner.
Oh, that's
so
a good
J-Lo,
one.
I'll be J-La. We'll take
I like
that
it.
one. Yeah. All right. So from Jumpin' Jenny, let's jump ahead. You transitioned out of Hollywood. I want to know how this happened because for some people, like Hollywood is the end goal. That's the prize. I mean, winning Emmys, having a successful career, working on projects that millions of people are watching the work that you're part of. Why did you leave?
Oh gosh, good question and sad question because I do miss that. It is fun to have your hand in the entertainment industry and just that culture in life. I just felt called to leave. I felt called into ministry, and it looked different than serving. I mean, because in the entertainment industry, you're really impacting culture, not in just the things you create, but in the people you interact with. And I love it so much. But God I felt called into something else. And now we're all the way here in Syracuse, upstate New York, which is very different. And I still see the faithfulness of God, even though it isn't always as glamorous.
And so was that a decision to, I mean, you have children, as you said, was a decision to move where you are now? Upstate New York is like, I think of upstate New York as where on Seventh Heaven, the show Seventh Heaven, they send the troubled teen when she's having a difficult time. Do you remember this? Jessica Biel, she gets sent to upstate New York to live with the grandparents. This is a very obscure reference. But the point is, in my mind, upstate New York is not like a highly desirable place to live. It's like literally where they go to punish their teen daughter. And so did you move? Why did you end up, I mean, from Hollywood to there? Was this a family decision? You wanted to be raising your kids in a kind of a different environment, or you're building your business, it's more affordable? What brought you back to Syracuse?
So Matt and I had our first child, and we wanted to be by family. So we prayerfully were like, what does that look like, God? Where do we land? And we were considering San Diego and Syracuse because my family's back here. And this ended up winning, and we've been here for about 6 years. It's been really great, but it has been really hard because my husband is a native Californian. He loves surfing. So there's been a lot of hard stuff around just him having to transition to a whole new a whole new way of life. Really, it's not that sunny here. I mean, so it's been different for us, but
yeah. And so then why? I mean, you're talking about a sense of calling. Tell us about that. Why is it that you want to build this kind of a business? What's the need that you feel like you're trying to meet?
Yeah, so our marketing company, we help leaders and influencers get their message out. So that's what we do part of the day. And then the other part of the day, we do ministry called Freedom Creatives, which is writing and speaking and just serving people in a way where they understand that their voice is valuable and their God-given voice is needed. And that a lot of times you have to fight through distraction. You have to fight through this need to feel like you have to people please. You have to fight through even that hustle mentality and make time for these holy moments to kind of realign your focus with what God has for you. So that's where I love spending my time and just helping to empower people to walk in the freedom God has for them.
Yeah. And where did this sort of begin stirring up in you? Was this, like you were saying that you were part of a church plant in Orange County. Where were you seeing this need from Christian creatives bubble up?
Yeah, I actually, at that time period, I felt called to go into speaking myself, and I didn't really know what that meant. I wrestled with so much insecurity. I remember I told one person that dream, and their response was, "Why would you do that?" And of course, human Jenny twisted those words to, "You're so insignificant. Your voice doesn't matter. How could you think you could do that?" And I just wrestled for 10 years, really embracing that calling. And I remember at the 10-year mark, I just kept like praying and being like, "God, I still feel so called deeply to do this and to step out in it. And who do I think I am to do that?" That was the insecurity talking. And God, I felt in my spirit, God say, "But who do you think I am to call you to do this? Don't you think I'm big enough to provide for you? Like, don't you think I know what I'm doing?" And I mean, conviction is real. Like, I repented and I took a step of faith, like telling my friend, somebody that was safe, and she's like, "You should totally do that." And started the ball rolling there. And from that 10-year delay, but walking in obedience has produced a book out of it. And like, God just has used it and opened up doors that I never imagined would be on the other side of this.
Yeah. Okay. You're mentioning your book. Let's talk about it now. Courageous Creative. Yeah. Where did that come from? How, from going from being nervous, insecure, unsure to putting a book together. That's really putting yourself out there. Yeah. Tell us about this book.
Yeah. So Courageous Creative is a 31-day interactive devotional for the procrastinating creatives and the procrastinating dreamers and the wounded creatives. And I wrote it out of all the lessons that I've learned of doing it wrong, but God has helped me through. So, as a child, children statistically 4 and 5-year-olds are the most creative people there are. And as we grow older, we lose that creativity. It gets buried, it gets lost, it gets shelved. We're not nurturing it. We're not being as intentional. And part of why I wrote the book was to fight back and help people realize and empower them. Like, you are meant to be creative. It's in your DNA. And so every day there's a challenge that goes along with it. So I'm not just teaching in the book, but it's actually activating that creativity. So I have cried my face off. The book's been out for maybe 2 months now, and people have told me they work through the resource and it's brought them deep inner healing, in a way I could not even fathom or imagined, but God's been using it powerfully to bring freedom to people. Can I share this story?
Yeah, please do. I was going to say, can you give us an example?
Yeah, one woman, she shared this with me and said I could share with others because it's so powerful. She had a really hard, abusive childhood, and she had a lot of deep trauma. And one of the exercises, there's 4 coloring pages in the book, and one of the exercises is just have fun, de-stress, and color, because science shows that coloring is a stress reliever. So she started doing this activity, and she was getting so overwhelmed and stressed out, and she started praying, why am I reacting in this way? And God began to show her, you're reacting in this way because you felt confined your whole childhood. And when you're just thing after thing after thing, as she was working through this book, God began to speak to her in ways, and she already processed through a lot of her healing, but this was just unlocking even more in her. And at the end of the Courageous Creative, she walked away being fully free and healed in a way that I could have never imagined.
Wow.
It was so powerful.
Yeah. It's that perhaps the power of the left brain, right brain working together. Your book is forcing people to use both halves, both sides of it. the engineer, like it's like your husband and yourself together in one book, the engineer and the artist in one. Trying to use both sides. Yeah, wow. And so it sounds like that's not really what you expected. Like you didn't necessarily expect it to be like a therapy session.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like this book is fun and it is, I mean, I can be intense, but like I can't be that intense. Like, you know, so it's been amazing to hear people. I mean, even there's one in the beginning of the book, it talks about what did you like to do that was creative as a child? And people just journaling through that is triggering memories that they used to love as a child, and now they're doing it as an adult, and it's like helping them heal in ways. Like it's been really powerful. But I don't want to say all that to limit people being like, oh well, I don't need that, because that's just like an added bonus.
Right. That wasn't the purpose that you wrote it with. It's sort of this cool thing that God's doing with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And this is the first thing that you've published. And so a lot of people listening are probably curious, even if you want to talk a little bit about what have you learned in the process of having to publish something? Like self-publishing versus trying to find an agent to help you find publishers. And, you know, that whole journey is huge. And a lot of people dream of doing it, but how was that for you? What have you learned along the way? What would you say to somebody else who's curious about that?
Yeah, so I don't know if you know this, but before Courageous Creative was that it was actually a self-published book called 31 Day Create. And I had published that it was physically in my hands 2 days before I flew out to a Christian writer speaker conference. And because the book is so visual, I brought it with me. And I had a chance to meet with literary agents, and I showed them the book, and they looked at it, like this one man looked at it, and he was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. People need this. So because it was visual, I knew I had to show them something. And they responded, and it ended up getting revised and a new title and way more classy, got a facelift, and that's what has been published from that. So I've been on both sides of it. Working with a traditional publishing company has been amazing because they have a whole team and they know how to do all the things. And
they're the experts, I guess you could say. And do you feel like the self-publishing route that you went originally, that obviously led to it getting picked up by an actual publisher? They wouldn't have seen your vision maybe if you hadn't published it yourself.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And people think, oh, well, I'll just do that same thing too. And I'm not advising that for everyone's circumstance, because if you're writing a novel or something that's not like an interactive journal that needs to be seen, you can send in your manuscript to a literary agent and get signed just as easily, rather than going through the whole self-publishing process to get it in front of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And as coming from this journey of feeling like insecure, who am I? Why should I be the one to speak? Tell us about that, because that's a huge wrestle for so many people who are communicators or who have something that they want to show to the world creatively. It takes courage, literally the title of your book, to get yourself out there. So what have you been learning about courage through the process of putting yourself out there in this way?
Yeah, I've been really learning, and I know the term identity is so thrown around these days in the context of who we're created to be, but I've been learning a lot about my identity, and that in my success, in my Emmy winning, and in my bombing a British accent voiceover, like God still loves me. And those things are fun to talk about. Those things are nice little bonuses or whatever, but it doesn't define me. That's why the question, what do you do? That's so hard. Or like, who are you? That's such a hard question for me, because I'm so much more. You're so much more than the work you do and the things we create. And understanding that, it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to really get that in your spirit. And I think I've been understanding that deeper, at such a deep, intimate level of I want to partner with what God's doing on earth. I want to be a person that he can trust to walk in obedience towards those things. And if there's a failure in there, I'm going to be okay, because I know that he's still called me. He's still purposed me. He's still designed me. And I can get back up and be secure in that he loves me no matter what happens, and just chasing after him, really.
Yeah, you talk a lot in your work about this performance mentality that you've struggled with, that obviously a ton of people performing, and yet even as someone who has performed and literally gotten the award for your work, to wrestle with that as a place of value. What are some signs of it, for yourself or signs for someone else to see, if this is an area of concern for them, if that's where they're finding their identity? Where could they watch for that?
Oh gosh, it's a joke, but it's true. That is my go-to sin. Not like, oh, everybody look at my sin, but that is where I struggle the most. I can just get so wrapped up in my work because I love it. And
what's your Enneagram number? Do you know? Do you know your Enneagram?
No, but I'm
okay.
obsessed
It's fine.
I know I'm obsessed with. Okay, do you do DISC? How about that?
I know DISC. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a high D, high I.
Got it.
Which is I love working. I'll get stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you, when you're in yourself or for other people who are listening, what are they watching for in themselves? What's the self-evaluation of when this, because we all have struggles. If it's performance, I think that's for a lot of people, being valuable based on what we do. Yeah. What are some signs that this is kind of going off the charts a little bit? It's controlling us. We're not controlling it.
Yeah, that's good. I think when you are getting anxious, or in this striving, feeling, for me, when I'm finding myself striving in a way where, okay, this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to, my pastor actually called me out on it the other day, which I'm so thankful for. I was trying, because my husband and I are prayerfully considering moving, and I was applying for all these jobs.
You mean you want to leave Syracuse?
How could we leave the town that sends disadvantaged youth to? I don't know.
For anyone listening who has watched these episodes of Seventh Heaven, you know what I'm talking about. It's Jessica Biel, the bad teenage child who gets sent to, upstate New York. Somebody's going to message me on social media and say they know what I'm talking about.
I hope.
Okay.
I hope they do.
But anyways, you're thinking about maybe moving on, and I'm interrupting your stream of thought here on performance mentality.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Even this isn't even work to try to figure out where to live, but I was performing and trying to orchestrate all the things to line up. And I love my pastor because he's like, you know what, Jenny, why don't you just take a step back and let God be God? You don't have to orchestrate all these pieces. And I can see that sometimes in work. I'll be trying to make this thing fit in here or there or whatever. And it's if as a creative, if you're noticing your work is feeling a little more anxious or you're wrestling in a way that feels unsettling, then I'd say you're probably striving. And that you need to just have healthy boundaries. I think as a person that struggles with performance mentality, you have to have boundaries in, okay, I'm going to work during these hours, shutting things off and being fully focused where I'm present at that moment. And I think healthy boundaries is the biggest thing that can help overcome that.
Yeah, what are some habits you have in your life? Again, I'm not looking for a performance checklist, so I'm going to be broad, whether that's in your work or your family. It's maybe what you do with your phone at night, or maybe it's your devotional time with the Lord. What's a habit that you've built in to wrestle that down?
Yeah, I turn off my computer on the weekends, not every night, but I turn it off on the weekends and I step away. I've told friends, this is when I'm working, this is when I'm not. Clients I've told. I think the biggest thing for me was setting our clients in the marketing business, setting our clients' expectations of, this is when I'm going to communicate with you. Outside of these hours, you're not going to hear from me. And there's a nice way to say that, right? But that has helped me not feel that pressure that I have to be the answer or the solution for everybody.
Right.
The world is still going to go on if I don't answer this in 6 hours.
Yeah.
So setting those boundaries and being an over communicator on when you'll get a response from me and what that looks like, I think has been really helpful.
Now, this is when you triggered a new question that I hadn't thought of yet. So as someone who receives clients in business context, what are some things that that in your experience would make that, like, because a lot of people, their clients, quote unquote, are ministries of the church.
Yeah.
The clients are their pastor if they're working in a church context. So what are some things that would make that relationship a little easier? Obviously, you're talking about communication, over communication. What's some things you've built into your business to make it successful make your clients happy, but also not lose your mind?
Not lose our mind. That's good. We have a process, like an onboarding process, and one of the questions we ask is, how do you like to be communicated with? Is it through Voxer? Is it email, texting? Like, what's your favorite form of communication? And we'll tend to stay over there. That way you're not hearing from us 700 different ways. It's just how you prefer. Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, Voxer is like a walkie-talkie app where you can just talk back and forth. We found that really, really useful. And so just putting that as part of our onboarding process has been good. And then I've templated a lot of our onboarding emails. Like, this is what you can expect from us. Of course, you personalize stuff because every client's new, but just really systemizing things in a way that I don't have to rebuild the wheel every time I'm starting to communicate with a new client. And that saves times right there. And then delegating the things I don't like doing or the things I'm not good at, like numbers, has been huge to preserve my sanity, and two, so I can walk in the areas I'm gifted in and walk freely in those areas and have the time, so the time's not being spilled over in other areas when I should be investing in my family or friends or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
And what would you say, to people who are listening and they're like, yeah, this would be nice if I was sort of in charge of myself. Like, they're just looking, they're feeling maybe in a place of discouragement. They're like, how nice for you. You've gotten to live the dream and run your own, live the dream in Hollywood and run your own business and do all these things. You sort of can create your own schedule, but there's a lot of people who don't. What would you say to encourage them? I know your heart is to encourage creative people, and a lot of them are struggling. I mean, they're stressed. they're feeling their own performance anxiety. What's sort of your encouragement to them today?
Yeah, I would just really hold on to that. Your voice does matter, and you are making a difference. And in the way you express your creativity, whether it's graphic design or stage lighting, whatever that looks like for you, know that it is really valuable and really needed. And that in those seasons, if you're intentional to take seasons of rest, you will find that you'll be able to work better, work smarter. God will help you refocus your priorities, and just know that the thing you're stewarding at work, it's needed, and your voice is needed. And that I just want to challenge people to really value that, but not hustle in a way that's unhealthy, but just to walk, be intentional to have those holy moments with God, because that's really where you gain the fuel to go on.
Yeah. As maybe one of my last questions here, where do you go for fuel? What's your go-to in terms of, if you were going to go in the Bible, do you have a verse that's guiding you? Or like, is there a Bible character that really inspires you? Maybe a book of the Bible that you would love other creatives to dive themselves into?
Yeah, Moses is like my jam, because, he made all those excuses. He was called, and then he was like, I don't feel qualified. I'm not smart enough. He makes all these excuses. And one after the other, God is just like, well, actually, do you know who I am? Like, boom, he just dismantles all those excuses and empowers him to walk in the thing he was called to do. So I love studying the story of Moses and like really grasping that in my own calling, because I mean, we've all been there making those excuses.
Yeah. So. I love that. Yeah. And Moses, as a communicator, he's a stutterer. He gives all the list of reasons why he doesn't want to go back and do what he's been asked. And yet in the end, like, God uses him in a mighty way anyways, kind of in spite of himself and because of who he is. Yeah.
Yeah. And God, I think it was over 30 or 40 miracles in Exodus alone that God was just providing and showing up for him and being like, you can make these excuses, but here's what I'm going to do. And he just did miracle after miracle of providing for him. And it's beautiful.
Awesome. And I see that in your own story, how God is every step of the way, maybe not showing you 5 steps down the road like we all want, but he's showing you like at every step where he is faithful to you and like where you should go next and how it's going to work. Not how it's going to work next year, but how it's going to work this month.
Yeah, good, because we don't always see that big picture, right? Yeah. And I think that's why it is so important to press into those holy moments, because you catch a glimpse of what God's doing and it begins to make sense. Like, okay, this is how I'm entering into God's story over my life. Now I see it. And that's why it's so important not to be stuck in that performance mode, but into those holy places of noticing what God's up to and being a part of it.
Yeah. Well, I don't do this with everyone, but I would love for you to pray for people who are listening, these creatives and communicators, wherever they may be at, whatever is sort of filling their head, whatever their anxieties are today about their own work. Would you just pray for them and for their future?
Yeah, I'd love to. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for all the creatives listening and just how they've invested in growing their skill set, in growing their spiritual life too, God. I just pray over them that you just begin to realign the vision you've given them with your vision over their lives, God. I pray that the ground you have them stewarding, Lord, that they see the holy moments in what you're doing. And I just pray right now that the ones that are striving or the ones that feel like they have to hustle all the time, God, we just give that over to you. And I just pray for freedom in their creativity, in their creative expression, but more importantly, freedom in who you've called them to be and who you've crafted them to be, God. And we thank you for what you're doing. We pray for even greater creative ideas and solutions, especially in the church and communicating the gospel, God. We pray for creative solutions in how to communicate and how to represent who you are. In Jesus' name, amen.
Yeah, amen. Jenny, thanks so much for your time. If people want to find you, they want to find your book, where do they go?
I'm at jennyrandle.com. And
Jenny with a Y.
Jenny with a Y. J-Lo. No, I'm kidding. And Randle spelled like candle. And my book is at all the places. Isn't that fun to say?
They can find it on Amazon, find it in the bookstore.
Barnes & Noble, yeah.
Awesome.
So,
yeah. Awesome. And I've got a copy of your book. I love your book. I think people need to get it. It's a really fun, if people are struggling with having a daily devotional time, especially creative people, they like change. You don't want to do the same routine all the time. It's a great way to shake up the routine and dive into something that will really bring, as you say, like healing depthfulness into people's lives. People got to get it. That's what I'm saying.
Get it. And it tackles the things that kill our creativity. Like I'll look at it all the time and be like, oh, I'm really struggling with this. And I'll read through it. But Joanna, I want to say your podcast is one of my favorite places to just go and listen. And
that's nice.
you really are such a gifted communicator. And I love getting to know you, and what you're doing is really important. So thank you for investing your nights and just serving the creative community in this way.
Oh, thanks. Honestly, I'm having fun. And I hope that shows. I hope that if I'm doing something, I'm enjoying the conversations and I'm learning from it. I hope that translates into other people enjoying them and other people learning as well. Yeah. And so I'm just grateful that we get to do this together, because we're all needing each other, and we all need encouragement, and we all need new, fresh ideas. And there's so many people who are doing brilliant stuff that no one's heard about yet. And I want to help them inspire other people with all this stuff that they're doing. So I hope that there's people who have never heard of you before who are going to be excited about the work that you're doing, inspired by it. Yeah.
Thank you. Wait,
Thanks.
Does this mean, since you're having fun, you're going to do a freestyle rap to close the show?
Okay, now context is in emails, right? You were saying we were going to do freestyle rap. Honestly, I will not, because it will just be bad. But perhaps on like an Instagram story, we could do some like an Instagram live when this comes out.
Yeah.
Let's do an Instagram live that day, and we'll do a freestyle rap. I'll get ready for it. I'm going to warm myself up for it.
You start practicing, and then we'll be ready.
That's good. Bring out all my 90s hip-hop show skills.
It's
awesome.
Gonna be good. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much. Well, thanks again to Jenny for being on the podcast. You can check her out on her own new podcast. It's released since we recorded this episode together. And the podcast, I love the name. It's called Shut the Should Up. It's with her and Candace Payne. And she's in this transition this summer as she's moving from this north, cold, snowy New York state down to sunny Florida. You can follow her on social media if you want to learn more about her business, her personal adventures. It's really kind of an inspiring life, and I think you'd love to follow her online. All that is linked in the show notes. Also linked in the show notes is our sponsor, Wycliffe College. If you're thinking about taking a course this fall, even as soon as September, you want to expand your knowledge in the Bible, Christian leadership, all that kind of stuff, you should check them out. They're so affordable, and they're just an amazing opportunity to grow. It really impacted my life when I went there, and I know that if you were to study there, you would be fairly impacted as well by all that you're going to learn. So next week is our last episode of season 2. That's right, the last one. And on this episode, for the first time ever, I've decided I'm going to be interviewed. So I have my friend James. He runs Visual Media Church, and he and I do a different podcast together called the Future Church Podcast. And so we're used to having these conversations over podcasts together, and I've asked him to come on and interview me and get in my head a little bit about why I'm doing what I'm doing, some context behind that, and then also what's ahead for all things in Word Made Digital, and some business stuff that I have coming up, and some projects that I'm working on that I think are really going to help all of you. So it's going to be a great way to wrap up the season of season 2, and then look forward to season 3 coming out this fall. All right, see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Word Made Digital podcast with Joanna LaFleur. If you like this content, hit subscribe and share this episode with your friends. Head over to joannalafleur.com for more free tools, interviews, and media for creatives and communicators. We'd love to help you be the best you can be at communicating the best news in the world.